Okay, so tonight we are continuing with the amazing teachings of Rebbe Nachman of Breslov, and we're learning the Sefer Sichot HaRan, and we're up to chapter 78, Ayin Ches, and tonight it's a very Hasidic, my classic teaching, classic Torah of Rebbe Nachman, and he's talking about how the entire creation is really essentially good, and it's impossible to escape the goodness of the world. The holiness of the world really permeates every element, and even where you would least likely expect it, you can still find holiness. Okay, and he's not just talking about places; he's talking about people. Like what he means is that even the people that seem to be the furthest from holiness, the furthest from kedusha, but those people, the truth is that they're not as bad as they look, and there's something that the entire world is full of goodness and is inherently good. And this is really a very comforting thought. This is really like when we talk about like restoring our faith in humanity. Okay, this is mamish what Rebbe Nachman is doing over here, that he's assuring us that mankind is good, and it might take time, but we can have hope, because by definition mankind will reach a state of goodness. Okay, that is the message. That is the message. We'll see exactly how he goes through it and how this is relevant to us and what we can take from this. So he starts like this: B'chol makom yesh yosher. That in every place in the world there is yosher. Yosher, literally the word yosher means straightness. And we're going to see that in his context he's talking about specifically being a person who's moral, a person who is just, a person who is righteous, a person who is like being a straight person is a person that has a moral compass and lives by it. Okay, so then every place you look, you will find yosher. Even a person that does all the most corrupt things in the world, that even that person, he still has some element of straightness. So what's the difference between people? That when does the straightness begin? That some people, their straightness is immediate. It's automatic. That some people, they only become straight after they do something wrong. That after they do something wrong, then they realize that their straightness kicks in. Okay, meaning they have guilt. They feel guilty about the bad thing they did, and when they feel that guilt, what's that feeling of guilt? That feeling of guilt is their straightness. And some people it takes even longer. That he only becomes straight after he's done many corrupt things. And some people it takes mamish forever. But even by that person, even the person that takes him mamish his whole life, but at the end, the yosher, the straightness, so it will eventually surface. So he says, he tells a story. He tells a story about something that he personally witnessed, that's something that he experienced. That there was a certain village, that there was a person from the army. It says the translation says it's something about the mail system, that the army person was in charge of the mail, and he came to this person and he told him, "Give me your horses. I'm taking your horses because I need to use the horses for my mail service." And he was working for the king, so you couldn't say no. So the poor yid, so he didn't want to give him his horses, and so he said, "I'll pay you off. Here, take this, and let's just forget that you ever saw me." Okay, and that was good. He was happy with that. And then a friend of the officer came, and the first guy told the second guy, "Hey, that guy, he has money. Tell him you want his horses. And then he's going to bribe you with money, and then you'll get free money." So that's what he did. And so then the third guy came, and the third guy he actually needed horses. He was the first two guys were just thieves. They worked for the army, but they didn't really need. They were just trying to get money out of him. The third guy he actually needed this horse for his needs of the king. And so the third guy again went to this poor Yid and asked him, "Give me your horses." And so then the Yid, so he went to the first army guy because he realized the first army guy was the guy in charge. And so he says, "Please, have Rachmanis on me that tell him to let me go." So what did he do? So the first guy went to the third guy and said, "No, come on, you don't need, take from somebody else." So he's look how poor he is, and so he had Rachmanis, but only a little bit late. Right? At first he was a big Rasha. At first he was trying to exploit him. First he was trying to take advantage of him, and he was trying to take his money for no reason, and that's mamish gezel, mamish theft. And then not only did he do theft himself, but he told his friend to do the same thing. And then the third time, so then suddenly his Rachmanis kicked in. So he had Rachmanis, he had this compassion, but it only kicked in after two mistakes, after two mishaps. Even though he was a bad guy, he was a gazlan, he was a thief. But even though he was a thief, but he had this element of yashrus that was inside of him, that came out after these two things. So we see from here that b'chol makom yesh yesher, every single place there's always going to be yesher, there's always going to be straightness. And the difference between the different people is simply how quick it takes for it to kick in. Then he says this is really what it means in the Zohar HaKadosh. That even on the left side, when he says the left side, he means the other side. The other side meaning the dark side. Even on the dark side, there's also a right and a left. The right side of the left, of the Sitra Achra, that it's very, very far from the left side of the holiness. So this is what it means that even on the other side, even on what he calls the left side, the other side, the dark side, that there is straightness, there is rightness, and yet it takes time. It takes time. But most importantly, the point is that it is there. Okay, so this is the teaching. This is the teaching of Rebbe Nachman, that even in the people that you would least expect it, that there is always going to be this yesha, there's always going to be this straightness. So what is he saying? So first of all, there's an idea that we're familiar with, and it's called the Pintel Yid. Okay, the spark of a Yid. So what does it mean, the spark of a Yid? This is an idea that the Balatanya talks about, that even in people that you wouldn't believe it, you wouldn't guess that they have any connection to Kedusha, but there's something in the fact that we have a soul, that the fact what he calls a neshama elokit, a divine soul, a chilek elokamima, that we have this divinity inside of us, and because we have this divinity inside of us, so that when push comes to shove, that spark will shine. Okay, and he gives examples of people that were very far from Hashem, very far from Yiddishkeit, and yet when the guy came to him and said, "Convert to Judaism, or else I'll shoot you," and so he proudly said, "No, never. I'm never giving up my Judaism." I'm like, "Hello, since when did Judaism ever mean anything to you?" and out of nowhere, these people that they were just woken up from their slumber and their souls were lit up, and that's what he calls the Pintel Yid. And there's mamish stories like this in the Holocaust that I've shared with you before, that there was once a member of the Bund. The Bund was like mamish anti-religious secular Jews in Germany, and so he was in the concentration camp, and one day the Nazi came in and he with lots and lots of bread. There were like tons and tons of food, and he says, "Jews, today is Yom Kippur. Today you can fress." And this guy from the Bund, so he goes up to the Nazi, and he says, "No, I'm not going to eat. Today's Yom Kippur, I'm not going to eat. And like this guy never fasted Yom Kippur in his life. Okay, this guy is the most anti-religious guy you could imagine. And the Nazi wasn't so impressed. He says, "Oh, I told you you're going to eat. You're going to eat. You're going to eat." And he took out his gun. He said, "Jew, I said eat." And nobody knows where this came from, but this Yid. So he said, "No, today's Yom Kippur. I'm not going to eat." And he shot him. He shot this guy. Like he Mamish gave up his life for Yiddishkeit, for Hashem, for his Judaism, and that where to come from. That he had so many times that it was very, very easy for him to fast, and he went out of his way to eat on Yom Kippur. And then when push comes to shove, then like there's Pintel Yid, so it shines. It's there. It's Mamish there, even when it's Mamish shouting the opposite, even when it's Mamish not evident and not able to be seen, but it is there. Now, that's an idea that we're familiar with. What Rebbe Nachman is doing over here is he's really expanding this. That it's not just by Jews, right? Because the story that we said is by some Goyish officer, and he's saying that this is much more universal. This is not just what they say in Chabad about the Neshama Elokis, about the divine soul of a Yid. This is something universal. This is something by every part of mankind. That all of mankind has this yosher. And the truth is that it should make sense because we know that even Goyim are created b'tzelem Elokim. Okay, this is something that people sometimes forget. That the Mishnah says very very clearly that Chaviv Adam shenivra b'tzelem. That the Mishnah says in Pirkei Avos that Chaviv Adam shenivra b'tzelem, that beloved is a person, beloved is human beings, that they are created in the image of Hashem. Shnemar b'tzelem Elokim barat Adam. As it says that Hashem created man in the image of God. Chaviv in Yisrael shenikru banim lemakom, and especially even more beloved are the Jews because we are considered the children of Hashem. Shenemar banim atam l'Hashem Elokecha. So the Mishnah goes in two stages, and it says very very clearly that even non-Jews are b'tzelem Elokim, and they're created in Hashem's image, and Jewish people are more than that, they're also Hashem's children. Okay, so it's also clear from that Mishnah that other nations are not considered Hashem's children. That's something special to us. But it is very clear that the Goyim are not animals. That there's what the I don't know, there's a certain response to anti-Semitism to think that Goyim are disgusting, Goyim are garbage, Goyim are animals, Goyim have nothing justifying their existence, and that's not really true. Really, the Mishnah says very clearly that even non-Jews are b'tzelem Elokim, that they're created in Hashem's image, and the truth is that logically it's necessary. That logically it needs to be that the entire humanity is coming from something holy, because the truth is that all of humanity, all of creation comes from Hashem. There is no other side. There is nothing that doesn't come from Hashem. The way that Hashem created the world was that He simply took from Himself, from His own existence, which is completely good, completely holy, and from His existence He made it smaller to the point that it became a physical existence, and that's everything we see. That's all the trees, it's all the flowers, it's all the mountains and the oceans and the animals and the vegetation and the people, and we're all in a certain sense, we're all coming out of Hashem's existence. So how could something so perfect and so holy result in something which is evil? Of course, that everything has goodness. Of course, all of creation has holiness there. Its very fabric of existence is from something holy. So logically, it needs to be like this. Now, I want to note that the word he uses, that the topic of our Torah, the topic of our discussion this evening, is an interesting choice of words. That Rebbe Nachman says that b'chol makom yesh yosher. That everywhere you look, there's always straightness, and it's an interesting choice of words. Like if the story that we're talking about, so it seems like that he's referring to Rahmanus. He's referring to compassion. That even a person that seems very cruel, but even he has compassion. It just takes time for the compassion to kick in. So what is it? What does he mean? Why does he use the word yosher, the word for straightness? So I think that he was inspired by the pasuk. The pasuk says in Mishlei that Ha'elokim asa et ha'adam yashar, that Hashem created man straight, v'hema bikshu chishbon rabim, and man himself searched for different confusing things. They got the calculations, literally. And like a person confuses himself with all of his different deliberations and all of his different thought processes. And Hashem created a person straight, and we make ourselves a little bit crooked. Okay, so that's a pasuk that talks about Yosher, that Hashem created us straight. And over there, the word choice of Shlomo Melech in Mishlei is Elokim Atza et ha'adam yasher. That it's clear from the word Adam that it's referring to mankind. It's not just referring to Jews. Right? So the pasuk says clearly that Adam, that mankind in general, all of humanity, is yashar, is straight. Right? So now, what does it really mean? What does it really mean to be straight? What does it really mean to be straight? So I think that the reason why he's talking about the word yashar, not the word Rachaman, compassion, or whatever other good midah that he could have spoken about, I think because he's saying something much deeper. And a person, if I would say that everybody has a little bit of Rachmanas, it just takes time for the Rachmanas to reveal itself, so a person could think that, okay, but he's still a jerk. He's still a piece of garbage, right? Okay, he has one redeeming quality, that he is compassionate, but he's so bad that I guess this compassion is just a bug in the system, right? And a person could, if you think about it, you could have a Nazi in the Holocaust that he could do an act of compassion, and he would say that, oh, you see, he's compassionate, but how do you explain the other 50,000 people that he was not compassionate to, and he murdered them with his bare hands? So to see compassion within a context of evil doesn't really say so much about the nature, the all-around nature of the person. Whereas to say that the person is straight, what does it mean to be straight? When we use the word straight, so let's try to define this. This is, do you know how we say a straight person in Yiddish? It's an erlich yid. A person who's an erlich yid, that it's like Rebbe Nachman thought that this was like the greatest compliment that you can give a person. He writes, we learned this long time ago. I don't know how long it's been since we started, but in Perek, in Sichot HaRan earlier, in Yud Daled, he writes, Ani mekani me'od ish kosher, a kosher yid, shekaran erlich yid. A person who's an erlich yid, I'm jealous of such a person. So what's it mean? What's it mean to be straight? So when we're talking about being straight, what we mean is that there's a certain path that I know I'm supposed to be on, and to be straight is not to veer from that path. So being straight requires that I have complete awareness of what I was meant to do, what my mission in life was, in every decision, in every interaction, in every struggle. So there's a certain line that is the straight line. And because I'm an erlich yid, because I'm an ish yasha, because I have yashus, so I follow the line, right? Do not go outside of the lines. You just draw within the lines. And I keep aligned. I keep in line with a very precise instruction of how I'm supposed to be living my life. That's what it means. That's what it means to be an erlich yid. It means that I don't veer to the right or to the left. And so that the word yashar is a much more inclusive word. The word yashar means that it's not just like I'm a horrible person, I just happen to have some rachmanas. To be a yashar person means that I'm actually fulfilling my mission in life. And so Rebbe Nachman is saying that even the worst rasha has inside of him the ability to be a person who's yashar, to have the ability to be a person who's completely aligned and is completely following every element of the way that I was meant to be behaving, the way that I was meant to live my life. So this is really, in other words, In other words, the to be a yasher person means to be in touch with my soul. And so with that definition, what Rebbe Nachman is saying is that even the biggest Rasha has the ability to be yasher, and not only that, he will be yasher. It just takes time for the yashers to come out. So it really means that even the biggest Rasha has a certain connection with his soul, and even if it looks like his soul is completely banished, completely extinguished, but it's not really true. And this is something that is a very Jewish concept, and like a very important idea that I've shared before, that we say a bracha in the morning, that Elokai neshama shenasata bi taharahi, that Hashem, that the soul that you've given me, it is pure. And regarding this bracha, so there's a very interesting dispute between the Ashkenazim and the Sephardim. There's two different ways to say the bracha. And it started with a discussion. Like the original Nusach, the original bracha said the way the Ashkenazim say, that Elokai neshama shenasata bi taharahi, which literally means that Hashem, that the soul that you give me is pure. So then the Sephardi Kabbalists, so they were reading this bracha one day, and they said, hey, does that really make sense? Does it really make sense to say that Hashem, my soul is pure? It was once pure. When you gave it to me, it was pure. But since then, I've done a thing or two to make it a little bit less pure. And that's I think that's a little bit ridiculous to stand before Hashem and say, Hashem, my soul is pure. Actually, my soul is disgusting. My soul is completely full of filth. And so that's why they changed the bracha. That's why the Sephardim, they don't say Elokai neshama shenasata bi taharahi. They say Elokai neshama shenatata bi tahara. The soul that you gave me holy. They don't say it is holy. They say you gave it to me holy. You created it, you formed it, and you put it in. But they don't say that it is holy. And so the Ashkenazim said back, the Ashkenazi Kabbalists said, speak for yourself. No, I'm joking. They said no. That there's something that you're misunderstanding. That there is this element of your soul. There is this part of the soul that cannot be tainted. It is so invincible. It is so pure that it's completely impossible. It's it's the opposite. It's the opposite of filth. It's the opposite of. This is I want to share with you that this is how the beginning of Matis Gelman, that he was an amazing Ger Chassid that he was killed in the Holocaust, and he had this whole infrastructure during the Holocaust of hundreds of students, hundreds of Hasidim that they refused to comply with the Nazis in any way. And I have a class about him in the series about Jewish heroes. And so he was about tshuva. He was his family was very assimilated Austrian Viennese Jews, and so his tshuva journey began that one of his non-Jewish peers in his school called him a dirty Jew, and it was the first time that that somebody mentioned the fact that he's Jewish in the first place, and he was shocked to say what's it mean dirty Jew. So, and he was walking by and he was very caught up in his thoughts, and he saw that there was a bunch of Jews in the ghetto that were crowded around this big rabbi, and so apparently he went and he wanted to meet with the rabbi, and he said I need to speak to you, and he ran up and he said, Rabbi, I just had this interaction with this non-Jew, and he told me dirty Jew, and he said, tell me, Rabbi, is it true? Are Jews really dirty? And so who was this? It was the Biana Rebbe that had come to the city, and he spoke, and the Biana Rebbe said, oh, my dear child, if you would know what it means to be a Yid, then you would know that it's completely impossible for a Jew to be dirty, because we say every morning, that a Jew has something which is so pure that it's impossible for him to be dirty, and so Matis Gelman said back, but Rabbi, but I don't daven, I don't know that, I don't. So he said, it's such a shame that you're being persecuted, and you don't even understand why you're being persecuted. And I said, I bless you that you'll find your path. I bless you that you'll be able to to be able to understand what it means to be a Yid. And that was that day, that changed his life. And from that, he came to the Emrei Emes, and he became an amazing chassid, amazing Oved Hashem. So this is what it means that we have this soul that cannot be tainted, that cannot be tarnished, that cannot be dirtied, and it's through this that this is what it means to be a yashar. This is what it means to be erlich. It means that there is always, even by the biggest rasha, even by the guy, that there is this element of yashrus, this element of a soul that will always be there, and it's very interesting that this element of this inner feeling of the soul shouting out that that there's a certain way that you should act. Do like I would want you to act. That feeling that we have in the neshama inside of us, that is pushing us, that is guiding us, that is directing us, that cannot be extinguished. So what's fascinating is that this is actually the story of how Viktor Frankl discovered God. Okay, Viktor Frankl, you might have heard of him. He wrote a very famous book called Man's Search for Meaning, and his story was that he was a very assimilated Jew. He's a psychoanalyst. He was very meaningful in the world of modern psychology. That he really changed the world, the way that the world looks at the human psyche. That before him, so the world of psychology was more taken with the philosophy of Freud. That Freud said that the basic psychology of a person is the id, which is the desire for physical pleasure, for sexual pleasure, and he really switched it. He made a revolution in the way that the world looks at a human being. That people are actually more inherently, more intrinsically looking for meaning than they are for physical pleasure, which is such an elevated way of looking at oneself, like as a race, as mankind. The fact that mankind looks at itself as a soul looking for meaning as opposed to a body looking for physical pleasure is such an amazing revolution, the way that mankind looks at itself. And so that's all because of Frankl. And so he has a very interesting story that the beginning of his career. So he was trying to heal people. He was just trying to help people get out of their pain, get out of their depression, and he helped people get out of depression by finding meaning in their lives. Okay, that was his thing. He called it logotherapy. The therapy from logos is the Latin word for meaning. And then he started realizing that if there's a meaning, then there must be, if we're searching for meaning, so then there must be a meaning. So then he started looking for meaning. And so through a search for meaning, he realized, what is that? It's coming from outside. That from the search for meaning, thank you. So from his search for meaning, so then he realized that there must be some way, looks like it's okay. Yeah, there must be some way to get in touch with this meaning. And so then he realized that the meaning of life is to make the right decisions. And if there's some right decisions to make, so then there must be some way to get to that right decision. It can't be that there's a meaning, and the meaning is to live life according to the meaning, and yet we're completely lost. That there's no way to find it. And then he realized that actually we do have a way to find it, because we're actually all born with a way to find the truth, the right decision in any particular situation, and that's what we call a conscience. That's what we call a conscience. That we have this built-in element inside of us that makes us feel good when we make the right decision. It makes us feel bad when we make the wrong decision, and this is something that is just, we don't know where it comes from. And then he realized that this is God. This is God. There's something inside of us. It doesn't make any sense. There's no logical reason. That we should have a natural feeling towards good or bad, good or evil. It doesn't make any sense. There is it's a little bit of a tangent, but there are atheists that believe there's something called the evolution of morality, and they believe that this conscience, that Frankl found God in his conscience. So they said that no, that's just it's just a mutation. It's just it's something that, but there's actually there's logical problem with this evolution of morality, because evolution only regards actions. Like the story about like stretching the neck. So like if you stretch your neck, when one of the animals stretched his neck, and that's how he got, because the way that he was able to survive was by stretching his neck. So that evolved, that it went into the genes of his kids, that now they're going to have. And like the whole theory of evolution, it's all that if you do something, so then doing something can make a change in the way that things, that the DNA of something continues. But in terms of actions, mankind has never acted morally throughout history. We've always thought morally, but we've actually never actually acted morally. So the actions of mankind have always been against morality, against the conscience. It's just we have this thing inside of us that just feels it. So it can't be that it just developed through evolution that we have a conscience. So Frankl, back to Frankl. So Frankl, he found in conscience that this is God, and it's actually it was a breakthrough that from being a completely atheist, intermarried Jew, at the end of his career he would speak openly about God. You can hear him speaking that like, he really believed that he didn't say that it's impossible to find meaning without God, but he really felt that the true meaning is the same thing as God, and so it's through his conscience, it's through this feeling of alignment, through this yosher, through this ehrlichkeit, that he found in his ehrlichkeit his God, which is really what we're saying. Because how are we defining ehrlichkeit? We're defining that what it means to be an ehrlich yid is that your soul is shining through, that you have an awareness of something inside of you which is divine, and you have the ability to live according to that truth. So this is the ehrlichkeit that Rebbe Nachman was so into, that every single person has it. It's simply built in, and this is exactly where Frankl discovered God, inside this ehrlichkeit, that all of mankind, not just you, that all of mankind have it in our DNA, that we have this ehrlichkeit, meaning we have a conscience. It's a very interesting thing in Hebrew. The word for conscience is matzpun, and the word matzpun is almost the same word as the Hebrew word for matzpen. Matzpen means a compass. In other words, that our conscience is our moral compass. It tells us which direction to go, and bring it to circle back to Rebbe Nachman, that when you have a compass, then you go straight. You don't go off. You don't veer left or right because you have a compass. The compass, the matzpun, is what allows you to come with yosher. Okay, so this is Rebbe Nachman's teaching. This is what he's telling us, that all of mankind has this yosher, and even the person that you would expect to please, even the person who's the biggest rasha, even the person who's the biggest thief, the biggest murderer, so he has this ability to be yosher. He has this ehrlichkeit. He has this connection with the soul, and it's completely impossible for him to disassociate with it. I think that there's another lesson, there's another thing that we can take away from this teaching, and that is that if you think about what Rebbe Nachman said, that everybody has it, it's just the question is how quick does it show up? So I think that something that lies in this teaching is that sometimes a person could grow and it actually won't show. In other words, that you can have like this rasha that he's talking about, that it took him two times. It took him two times before he did tshuva. That you could have a person that takes him more times. You could have a person that it takes him like 50 years of theft, 50 years of being a serial killer before his yashrus shows up, right? And so Rebbe Nachman says that it's still there. And so you can have a person who's a little bit better, that it doesn't take 50 years, it only takes 40 years. But a different person that doesn't take 40 years, it takes 1 year. But you could, that how good you are, how more aligned with your soul, or how connected you are with your soul, is all about how long it takes. So a person could actually grow, and still, on the outside, he looks completely bad. A person could have been that his soul was so covered up, so buried deep down, that based on that state, so it would have taken him 60 years for anything, for any feelings of guilt. And then something happened to him and the beneath, like under the surface, so he became a little bit less apathetic, a little bit less cruel, and now his soul is a little bit closer, that now only in 10 years it'll surface. And so that's actually growth. Right? He used to be much worse, but on the outside, you're not going to see anything. So there's a lot of growth that a person could be doing that actually is not going to be evident. And there's something that we need to realize with ourselves, that sometimes a person is actually growing and it doesn't actually happen yet, and it doesn't mean that nothing amazing is happening. They say there's this metaphor of some kind of maybe it's a bamboo tree. It's a bamboo tree that it takes many years. How many years? You know what I'm talking about? It takes like 10 years that you have to water the tree, and the whole time that it's just making roots. And on the outside, on the surface, you don't see anything. And then after 10 years of watering the tree, so then in a matter of weeks, so that it shoots up, and you have like 50 meters of this bamboo tree. And so like there's much going on that's beneath the surface. There's lots of growth isn't always something which is seen on the outside. And we have a person, like think about trying to change a habit. Okay? So that you do something like subconsciously. It's really hard. When you do something subconsciously, it's really hard to change a habit. Yeah, I like with my students. It's like a lot of people that before they're religious, so they curse, and they're trying, now they're religious and they want to stop. So like how do you do it? So it's true with any habit that a person has. So I tell them that it's simply a process. It's just like it's not going to happen overnight. But you notice that the first step is awareness. The first step is to just be aware that to take a mental note when you did something that you didn't want to do. So just take a mental note, and the fact that it's on your mind. So then that's also something. And so then after a while after you do something to note that you did it, then after a couple of weeks you're going to notice that it's not just after, it's that as you're doing it, you're noticing that you're saying it. And then after a couple of weeks, a couple of months, that you're noticing it as you're doing it, then you notice it as you're coming to do it. and so of course, just because you notice it as you're coming to do it doesn't mean that you're actually going to do the right thing, because it takes time. It takes time for us to we have the impulse to do something. So sometimes it takes time to the message, hey, don't do it, takes time as well. And sometimes and then sometimes, eventually, we'll notice it even when it's on the more preliminary stages of wanting to do it, and then we'll be able to succeed, right? So this entire process, it takes, let's say, 6 months, and so on the outside, nobody saw anything. On the outside, I was cursing the exact same thing as I was before, but the truth is that I was growing the entire time. At the beginning of the process, so I was this person that my yashrus only kicked in after 5 times, and then by the end, so then the yashrus kicked in immediately, right? So this is something which is very, very practical for all of us to know, that most of growth is behind the scenes, okay? And the fact that it's not showing on the outside, mamash does not mean that it's not real, and to be able to look at ourselves with this positive light, to be able to look at this with this positive eyes, that we have goodness inside of us, even if it's not on the outside yet, but it's going to show up, and it is in its process of showing up. And not only in ourselves should we be looking like this, which this is something which is comforting to look at the rest of the world, and like we started this class, that this is something that Rebbe Nachman is telling us in order to help us restore our faith in mankind, to know that the world is good, and it just requires a certain waking up. The world doesn't. We don't need to switch the world. We don't need to switch mankind. We don't need to just get rid of the world and get a new world. That it's there. It's there. It doesn't matter what they're saying right now. It doesn't matter how much evil there is. But even those evil people. Now, I should say parenthetically that there is Amalek. There is Amalek out there. and we don't know exactly where they are, but it does exist. And Amalek is obviously the exception. Amalek doesn't have an Tzelem Elokim. They do not have any soul. They do not have any. They don't have any connection to. To Ehrlichkeit, and they absolutely need to be destroyed. And that's, to a certain extent, that's what we call today a sociopath. A sociopath is a person that has no conscience. He feels no remorse of doing the most cruel things. There's no, he's missing a screw. He's missing this natural screw that normal people, that when you murder somebody, you feel bad. And this guy, he's missing that screw. He's missing that conscience, and that conscience, we're defining that is his neshama. And so there are exceptions. And those.
So what? Even if they're Jewish.
I guess a sociopath doesn't have. That's a good question. I don't know how to deal with that. But yeah, logically, that comes out. If a person has no conscience, and the conscience is your neshama, so then something up with that. I don't know. But why, you have a friend that's a sociopath?
I just was in psychiatry, in a rotation there recently.
Okay, so. And you met a sociopath?
There were, It's rare. They're usually not.
Okay. It could be there's levels.
Yeah. So I actually I was going to ask about sociopaths.
Okay. So yeah, I would like to believe maybe that a Jewish sociopath is not the complete sociopath. He's like this kind of
cognitive conscience, that it's not necessarily that they feel guilty, but they know that if I do that, that's not going to serve me, and therefore it helps them still be in society. Not every sociopath is.
Interesting. Okay, I'm not sure if that would work for our purposes, because it's only coming to serve himself. It's not the conscience that we're talking about.
Right.
Conscience is an actual feeling of remorse, an actual feeling of that was wrong, and
right.
He's still lacking that. Right?
So what's society's approach to that?
Society needs to protect themselves. That's I'm not talking that's certainly that we need to protect ourselves from danger. That's Rebbe Nachman is saying a more global thing. Rebbe Nachman is giving us hope, that the world has hope because the world is good, and even the people that don't, that the vast majority of people that even on the outside seem like they're not good, but they actually are good. It just takes time. It just takes awakening, and it takes time. It takes something for them to remind them that their conscience and their elikos and their elikait, that their yashus should kick in. But eventually, the world has hope. So, B'ezras Hashem, we should see very soon how all of the collective consciousness of the world should be awakened, and then the entire world will be yashar. B'ezras Hashem. Okay.